Welcome everyone to a special edition of Speaking Moistly. With me today is Paul Hinman. Welcome, Paul. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing excellent. As I always say, better than I deserve. When I look around and see what people are going through with all of the problems, I'm blessed and grateful. So doing well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Paul is the leader of the WildRose Independent Party in Alberta, and he's graciously decided to join me today to have a conversation about just, I mean, is it just me, or is what's happening in Canada crazy, like really outside of the norm? Do you feel like that out west?
I don't think that there's a Canadian out there that if they were reading this 2 years ago and saying this is what's going to happen, that they would say, no way, not in Canada, that's somewhere else. No, we're truly on uncharted territory, and it's disturbing.
It is. One of the things, so I'm in Ontario, and one of the things that's really kind of struck me as shocking is how many conservative, really conservative provinces have been more, further left than the NDP in British Columbia. What is happening? So out in Queen's Park in Toronto, Doug Ford is introducing vaccine passports in certain places. People are demanding. Out west, I heard today, people are going on strike. The Superstore wants to go on strike for people who are customers coming through who are unvaccinated because there's no mandate. They don't feel safe. So what do you think about Jason Kenney? Obviously, you're the leader of the WildRose Independent Party. Were you a happy UCP person, or were you always not happy with Jason Kenney's leadership?
Well, from what my relationship with Jason going back to when he was running in federal politics and what he always talked about, I honestly thought in 2000 and when was it when he became the leader? Anyways, but I spoke with him. I supported him as the leader, and I truly believe that I would never have to be involved with politics again. We got people like Jason who seem to love it, want to live it, always talked like they were true conservatives.
Yeah.
But with my highest expectations came my biggest disappointment, and I just can't believe the way he's fundamentally running the province and viciously attacking our constitutional rights and undermining them and stripping them away. But it's not just Jason, like you say, that this is a worldwide pandemic when it comes to policies and politics, and it's scary.
It is. It's interesting that you use the medical term to describe the policies and what's going on. I think I agree with you. It is. It's
worldwide.
It's transmissible. Yeah.
It's just shocking to me. I just think like this is happening in Australia and New Zealand, and it's just truly shocking to me. And like I say, anybody who could read history 2 years prior, I don't think you'd find anybody who would agree on any side of the political spectrum to say, oh yeah, that's where we're going to be and that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
But
well,
here we are.
I'm a person, I like to read conspiracy theories just to know what they say. So a couple of years, if a couple of years ago, somebody came out and said, let me tell you what they're going to do to Canada, and then described exactly what we're living, you'd be like, you nut bar, like, get out of here, you crazy person. Right. Truly. It's so jarring because it's unbelievable, because it's like there would need to be a war happening somewhere for the drastic changes that have occurred here to have occurred here. But there was no war. The war was on.
Well, I'll argue with you, Mark. This is very much like the Cold War.
Yes. Well, right.
This is an absolute war on policy. And it's attack on freedom, and it's about globalism. It's about the Great Reset, and it's scary because like the best analogy that I can give is the frog in the boiling water. That we're all thinking that this is warm and fuzzy. They're looking after us. And again, it goes back, it's the individual's responsibility to be looking after their welfare, their safety, their health. And all of that is being, just stripped away. And you've got central authoritarian, totalitarian government saying that we know what's best for you, and you must follow these mandates. And it's truly scary.
Yeah, one of the hallmarks of this has been unelected bureaucrats being able to fundamentally change the structure of our laws to like their order supersedes our basic charter rights? I've been talking about, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we say that, but what we have is politicians who have handed it over to them. And again, it's even in our judicial system, people are not getting their day in court, and the courts are not following the Constitution. It bothers me to hear judges talk about proportionality. If is it proportional, the losses versus the gains? Our Constitution doesn't say proportionality. They've read that in there. It says it must be demonstrably justified, and they can't. And even here in Alberta, with people that have been taken to court, and Dr. Hinshaw was supposed to be in court. She didn't come. They don't bring any numbers. And the judges are saying, well, if it's just you care about the general well-being, we'll take your word for that. And again, this needs to be in the courts, and they need to have the actual numbers and the evidence and openness, transparency. The trust of government is diminishing just exponentially in many people's cases.
Oh yeah.
And how can we trust government when they flip-flop back and forth and say one thing and then do the next? And it's causing, probably the worst of it is that I think that this is the most divisive thing that we've had in Canadian history, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, even just looking at Justin Trudeau coming out and saying, unequivocally, we will not do vaccine passports. We're never going to do that, and then listing examples of reasons why you wouldn't do that in Canada. And I saw that and I thought, weird, right? Like, that doesn't seem like the direction we're going, but okay. And then all of a sudden, like, you can splice the two clips of him saying it's mandatory to have a vaccine to get on a plane or a train in Canada. And now it's mandatory to have have vaccine to have a job, and it's mandatory to right. So it's such a departure from the country that I grew up in, that I used to live in.
Yeah, and again, Jason Kenney did the same thing. He said that this is against the law, and it's illegal, that we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then they're flipping on that and allowing businesses and stuff to say it. And again, the strike that no, they're not coming in here. But this is a complete failure of leadership. And this is going back to where the fear mongering, the divisiveness is being allowed, and the lack of information. Like even let's just go back to the daily deaths. What they should be doing, if you're showing leadership and want to get out of this, you'd say, well, look, we had 18 deaths today. 12 of those were seniors that are 82 years and older. 5 of those had do not resuscitate. And you tell people that it's going there. And again, with the Great Barrington Declaration, they talked about the importance of protecting those that are vulnerable. And yet they're attacking the working well. And this is a complete reversal of what we've ever done historically. And again, it seems like it's just an attack on the individuals. And again, what politicians love to do is to create the divisiveness and tyranny of the majority, and not have respect for people as a whole. And again, saying that these are the plagues of society, these are the problems, and it's very disturbing what they're doing and how they're doing it.
It is. Well, I mean, if you turn on the news, excuse me, not the news, a radio station, if you're driving around in the car, the ads, like the constant onslaught. I listen to my phone more than I listen to like the radio now, but when I do listen to the radio, I'm changing the station every other minute, because the ads are just, you can't get away from it.
We're being bombarded with the same propaganda from government, from social, from media.
Yeah, we're paying for it.
With the censorship, to get that information out is very difficult now.
It is. Well, I mean, my YouTube channel got removed because, they said medical misinformation to spoil my book, which you should buy. But I'm just kidding. But the point is that they don't want anybody like you or me with a view that is different than what they're telling people is true. And that's again. And
Mark, it's not even yours or my view. It's like you listen to Dr. Peter McCullough or Pierre Corey out of California. These are highly respected individuals that are, some of the most well published in there. And they're not allowing it. Like they're not allowing it on the professional level for the debate to go on, which is what we do scientifically. So put you and I aside, who aren't experts, who aren't in there. They're not allowing the experts to have the that discussion, and
Mhm.
they're certainly not allowing. The College of Physicians is just using unbelievable, I want to say, leverage on doctors
Mhm.
who are looking around the world for possible, well, not possible, for successful treatments and early intervention, and they're attacking them from doing it. And
Mhm.
so it's very disturbing when you look at this, and the idea that doctors here in Alberta, and I'm sure it's the same in Ontario, can't look around the world and see what's working successfully and implement it here.
Yeah. Well, it seems like if you point out something that's working successfully, like there is a province in India that started using a
Yep.
specific medication, if you point
Yep.
that out, buddy, your YouTube channel's nuked. And
Yep.
don't you dare, like, you happen to be a terrorist or maybe a white supremacist or, any other label that they want to paint you with. And it's meant specifically to shut down any dissent. And
Yep.
it's so
No,
effective that it's unbelievable.
it's shocking. It really is. Like I
Yeah.
say, as you said, if you were reading this 2 years ago, you would laugh. This is
You wouldn't
off the
believe it.
chart on conspiracy.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe, you would be laughed out of the room if you were like
Yep.
over Christmas dinner. Like, no, let me tell you what's going to happen.
Even going back 6 months, and this so-called, when this idea of vaccine passports, I mean, all of our leaders said, no, 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 absolutely not. Your medical information is your private information.
Yep.
People can't ask for
Yep.
it. And boy, I don't know what
Reversal.
elected individual at this point is saying that we're not going to allow this in our province or our country.
There are very few, right? And so like it's looking like this vaccine situation is going to be a worldwide global standard, and then what? Right? Like, and the whole world governments are going to be enforcing this vaccine that looks like it doesn't really work. And I mean, I'm an idiot, right? Like, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm a total idiot. So like, what do I know, right, about what vaccines work and don't work? But like, this idiot can read math and charts. And last year we had less cases, deaths, and hospitalizations than we do this year. So that's his failure to this idiot, right? Like, so I don't know.
It's very disturbing that we don't get the honest numbers. And again, when you look at some of the other jurisdictions that are now onto their fourth shot, they've changed the definition of what a vaccine, they've changed the definition of what a pandemic is.
Mhm.
And like here in Alberta, we have one person in 25,000 that needs medical care, and we've spent over $22 billion. And they're saying that we're in a crisis. It's a management crisis. I mean, we should have been we should have been asking nurses to what would I say, get educated to fill in for the ICUs and paying them and saying, we need more. And instead they're shutting them down. They're firing them that aren't following their protocols, and they're creating I want to say an inflamed problem here.
Yeah.
And they're contributing to the problem rather than solving it, because
Yes.
for 20 years here in Alberta, we've had bed shortages. We haven't had
Hallway
access
healthcare.
to hospitals, and they've done nothing about it.
Mhm.
And now that they're saying that, when we have 300 people in a province of 4.4 million, and that's a medical crisis, what are they going to do in a real pandemic where 5% of the people are sick? They have no ability or plan to address those things.
Yeah. What's the percentage of 300 out of 4.5 million? What's the percentage? Like, how many people can you take care of? Less than 1%.
Yeah, it was like 0.01%.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's incredible. So like Florida, just the state of Florida has more ICU beds than all of Canada. Put that into perspective. So if you were like, let's hypothetically play game. If you were running this whole crisis, would you have thrown money at locking people down instead of staffing the hospitals and expanding your hospitals? If it were me.
No, that's like I say, we've had a hospital shortage problem and beds shortage problem for 20 years.
Yeah.
And again, what we need to do is it's about the frontline service, and we need more nurses, we need more beds, and we need access to those beds. And again, we need more training. We've known about this for 2 years now, and they say they don't have enough people that have the ability to intubate somebody. We'll train them. We've had 2 years to train them.
Yeah.
I was told by one doctor that in 2009, with the SARS breakout, that the province bought 2,500 ventilators. They don't know where they are, but we have 300 people.
Magic money gone.
Yeah, we have 300 people in our ICUs, and they're talking about having to triage.
So that was the other thing.
Mismanagement.
Yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. In the States, they're firing a bunch of healthcare workers for not getting the vaccine. In Canada, they're doing the same thing. There's Kings. Well, in Ontario, we saw a couple of major
They,
hospitals,
they've
Kingston.
announced that here, and those frontline workers who have been serving for 18 months are now being told that they can't serve anymore. We already have a shortage. There's already a stress
Yeah.
on the system. And now I don't know that the argument is whether it's 5%, 10%, 20% of the people do not want to get vaccinated. They've already exposed themselves to it. I mean, we don't even allow for tests for, to see if we have resistance and antibodies to this. I mean, everything's about fear mongering and scare and control, not about confidence and leadership and in enlarging our system, creating more robustness, increase in the ICU beds and again, ICU nurses. All of those things should have and needed to be done, and they weren't.
Yeah. In New York, the governor of New York just announced that they were going to bring in the National Guard to supplement or to supplement all of these healthcare workers who are being fired. And my question is this: we shut down our entire economy. We're destroying our supply chain. And instead of last year bringing in the National Guard and the military to expand our capacity to a point where we didn't have to do that and we could continue to live life because our medical capacity is expanded using military. Instead of doing that, they said, no, we've got to shut down the whole West. And that doesn't make any sense. And now it's okay to bring in, because they're firing healthcare workers. Now they're bringing in the military to put it back up to the rate that it would be if they weren't firing healthcare workers. It's crazy.
And these military workers do not have the level of training that our nurses have. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they're even considering this when they have people that are willing and able to work, and they're saying no, that you're not meeting our mandate, and so we're going to fire you. It like you say, it's truly shocking. It's disturbing. It's unbelievable, but that's where we are, in fact.
Yeah. And it's a situation where, like, I think people think that there's like an easy way out of this. Not an easy way out, but an easy way out would be like, oh, we beat it, yay, and then things go back to normal. But that's not going to happen. Like, there's been a fracture now, like, and repairing the fracture is very
well, just the fact that our constitutional rights have been stripped away. I mean, our premier last December said, look, I realized what I did was wrong. I shouldn't be picking winners and losers in businesses. And again, whether you're a hairdresser, a barber, or I just, yesterday, my wife goes to a gym, and they announced that, after 2 years that they're shutting down, that they can't stay open. It's just that the number of businesses and lives that have been impacted by this are wrong. People that wanted to go to the gym, they could do their proper safety protocol to stay safe. I mean, I was in, even like here in Alberta, they've brought it down to 15% capacity. And I stopped in yesterday at Canadian Tire needing some things, and then I went to the superstore, and it's an anthill. And yet, though, a barber shop or a hairdresser or a gym with just a few people, that's the target of this government. No, when you look at it, nothing makes sense. And I just say, well, the level of thinking is very easy to be determined here in Alberta. Last winter, only 15 people could go to church. But if one of those were dead, you're only allowed 11. And if you're taking that dead one out to the graveside to bury them, only 5 were allowed. There's nothing sensible about what they're doing. It's about control. It's about fear mongering and turning people on themselves.
Yeah,
it's very disturbing.
It is. And when like, if it was me fixing this, if it was me that was, let's say I had a magic wand and like Jagmeet Singh could become the overseer of Alberta, right? I would just repeal everything. I would say, like, all of these COVID things are gone, done, simply over with, expired. I would remove the power of the public health people to do this, but people would attack me for that. People would say that that's the wrong move and I'm putting people in danger.
Our chief medical officer said that back in June or July, said that, we're going to treat this like the common flu. This isn't that different from that. And that's how we're going to handle it. And again, they reversed that. But no, that's the most important part. And again, government's real role in this is to actually step forward and be gathering the information that you and I don't have access to. They should be searching the world every day and looking and seeing, well, what's being successful? Is there something in California or Florida or Texas or South Dakota or over in India or Mexico or Peru? And to look at that, I mean, the research papers and what's going on is incredible. But here in Alberta, we should have been allowing these trials to go forward. Lots of people are going around, and I've spoken to a doctor who's getting this medicine and treating people outside of the healthcare system. And again, he says that he hasn't lost a life, but he sees God's intervention more in it than himself. But he went down to Texas and met with Dr. Peter McCullough and their group to get educated on how to treat people for this. And there's a complete lack of openness, transparency, and discussion on these things, and it's costing lives. I mean, Peter McCullough said down in Texas that he believes that 85% of the deaths would have been prevented if they allowed the early intervention that he and other doctors have discovered.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like, I mean, the Liverpool care pathway, the Como putting the seniors into or COVID people into long-term care homes and senior citizens homes, et cetera, happened in Quebec, happened in Ontario, happened in the UK, happened in New York. It seems like they were trying to bolster the numbers to me. Right. Again, I'm an idiot, right? But like looking at that, it seems like they needed the numbers to be high to scare people. And if you look at the all-cause mortality, what's the emergency, right? Like there was a worse flu year in 2018. So
yes,
it's very frustrating, and it is. You're right in that it's not leadership. So I mean, I'm hopeful that we see a return to leadership across the provinces. We've seen, like I said, like we started with, conservative governments being worse than the NDP.
I'm going to say that they've got a different agenda than to protect the freedoms of their people. And that's why we created and have got the WildRose Independence Party of Alberta, is that these current governments here in Alberta, whether it's the NDP or the UCP, are not going to change course. And the most, I want to say, peaceful and beneficial way is through politics to replace governments that shouldn't be there, that aren't protecting our constitutional rights. And that's what we're doing here in Alberta, and the movement's growing, and people realize that we need a better government that's actually there to be there for the people rather than the people for them. And again, these draconian steps that they're taking, the mismanagement of our healthcare, our education, just every aspect, the people are not the ones that are being served or protected.
Yeah, well, I agree. So what is your goal in the short and long term with the WildRose Party? Are you hoping to, I mean, like WildRose, the original WildRose that merged with UCP, they were very successful. Very successful.
I don't know that you call that success when you look where we are.
I guess so, but like in Ontario, it seems like a long shot to have a third party. I mean, now more than ever, I think we're kind of poised for it. But in Alberta, you guys have proven that yes, you can elect seats from a party like the WildRose, like a third party, much more readily than in Ontario. And I don't know what the difference is, but I think that you wouldn't be well. And we've even seen it out east as well, like Nova Scotia, a little bit of New Brunswick. So I'm interested to see what kind of numbers you guys do. Do you have a lot of interest in the party? Are there a lot of people?
Well, the latest polling that came out back in June, we were up to 20% approval across the province, and people said that they'd vote for us, which is astounding for a new party that was just a year old. But the bottom line, our current status quo, and I want to say the least of two evils is not being what we say widely, well, it's widely accepted, but there's a huge portion of people that realize that no, it's time to vote for what we believe in. It's time to vote for a government that's there to serve the people rather than the people serve the government, and to protect their individual rights. I mean, it's just our government it's out of control. The regulations are out of control. The spending is out of control.
Everything.
Just every aspect of our government I look at right now and think that, wow, we're not doing a good job, and we're actually diminishing our children and grandchildren's opportunity for a future. And
Massively.
it's very concerning for me. And I would say at least 20% of Albertans that have fallen in line and say that, yes, we need to create a new party. And I see that momentum growing because we're not being served well by the current status quo in any of the parties, like you say, the two main parties.
Yeah. Well, right. And man, well, I hope that you guys make lots of inroads. I hope that you have a good showing in the next election. When's the next election?
It's not scheduled until May of 2023, so about 18 months or so
You got
away.
time.
But well, we do, but this is a boots on the ground campaign, because the mainstream media and the government is doing everything it can to keep the information from the people. But we're excited with the WildRose. We just printed 100,000 brochures. They're about all been distributed. We'll be issuing more or ordering more, and different constituency associations are out there talking to their neighbors and going door to door, which is the only game that we can and will succeed at, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, ground game is massive. Yeah. There's such a value in getting out and seeing the constituents and being out there knocking on doors and talking to people. So
well, and providing people with an option, because most people are not aware of it. Like they say, well, what can we do? It's just like I say, picking the least of two evils. Well, no, now you actually have a party with policies that are interested in you in the future, and balancing the books and making sure that we have the healthcare that we need, because it was like it's been failing here for 20 years, and this isn't a change in direction or problem, and we need to be focused on the front line, and we need to decentralize. We need hospital administrators that have the ability to make the decision and say, wow, like here in Lethbridge, we've got a lot of seniors, and we need to be more robust and increase and be prepared for this situation. Flu season comes every year, and it always puts pressure on our system. So let's build a more robust one and be prepared for it.
Yeah, that seems like common sense. So, well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. And I mean, that was a good final thoughts. Would you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to mention to anybody who might be interested? Where can they find you?
Yeah, let's go to wildrosenation.com and take a look at our platform and what we're offering. Accountability, transparency, reduced size of government, reduced taxation, all of the problems that the government is creating. We're actually looking at them and realizing that, no, we can change direction. That the status quo to have centralized power in Edmonton and Ottawa is not serving us well. And it's time that we stand up to the bullies and say, you're not going to make decisions for us. We know how to look after our environment. We know how to take care of our health care, and we'll do it individually, one community at a time, and just allow that freedom to be there so that we actually can be strong and free. But wildrosenation.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir. And well, check out wildrosenation.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. And you can find my stuff where you usually find my stuff. And we'll see you next week.